I stood frozen in my wedding dress as champagne dripped down the delicate white fabric. The reception hall fell silent as my sister Amanda's words hung in the air. Here's to the family fraud in white. Every eye turned to me, including my new husband Jason's confused gaze. My mother rushed to Amanda, grabbing her arm and whispering loudly. She didn't mean it, but the damage was done. I didn't respond, just watched as champagne soaked into the dress I'd saved for months to afford. In that moment, surrounded by shocked guests and sticky with expensive champagne, I knew our family would never be the same again. Growing up in our small Connecticut town, Amanda and I were inseparable. Being 3 years older, I always looked out for my little sister. We shared a bedroom with floral wallpaper, whispered secrets after bedtime, and built elaborate snow forts together every winter. Our childhood seemed perfect from the outside. A hard-working father, a doting mother, and 2 sisters who adored each other. Everything changed when Dad died. I was 16, Amanda just 13. His heart attack came without warning one ordinary Tuesday evening. One minute he was helping me with calculus homework, the next he was gone. The medical bills devoured most of his modest life insurance, leaving our mother shell-shocked and struggling to keep our house. "Lily, I need your help with the bills this month," became my mother's regular refrain. At 17, I was working weekends at the local diner and evenings at the town library. By 18, I was putting in 30 hours a week while maintaining my grades. When college acceptance letters arrived, I chose the state university that offered me the best scholarship, turning down my dream school that was too far away and too expensive. "You're so lucky you got that scholarship," Amanda would say, though. There was nothing lucky about the countless nights I stayed up studying after work shifts. While I was balancing school and jobs, Amanda was changing, transforming from my sweet little sister into someone I barely recognized. By the time Amanda entered high school, she developed a sense of entitlement that confused me. She expected our mother to buy her designer clothes we couldn't afford. She complained about eating leftovers. She rolled her eyes when I suggested she apply for a summer job. "That's your thing, Lily. I'm focused on my social life. College applications are going to care about that too." When I landed my first real job after college, I set up a family trust fund specifically for Amanda's education. Every month I put in $200, sometimes more when I could spare it. Our mother contributed what she could, which wasn't much on her administrative assistant's salary. The account grew steadily earmarked for Amanda's future. During Amanda's junior year of high school, I came home for a weekend visit and found her in a panic about her calculus final. "I'm going to fail," she sobbed, "and then I won't get into any decent schools." I stayed up all night helping her study, breaking down complex problems into manageable steps. The next weekend, she called me ecstatic. I got an A-, the highest grade in class. I was so proud. Until I wasn't. A month later, I visited again and found a text on Amanda's phone that she'd left on the kitchen counter. It was from her friend Zach. Did the answers I sent work for the final bet that A feels good? When I confronted her, Amanda burst into tears. It was just that one time she insisted. I was desperate. "Please don't tell Mom. Please, Lily. You know how much pressure I'm under." I should have told our mother. I should have let Amanda face consequences. Instead, I made her promise never to cheat again and kept her secret. I told myself I was protecting her future. More secrets followed. More lies. More cover-ups. But I kept believing in my sister, kept hoping she would grow out of it, kept thinking that if I just supported her enough, she would find her way. When Amanda got accepted to the state university, our mother and I were ecstatic. We took her out for a fancy dinner to celebrate, stretching our budget for the occasion. That night, we set up a shared bank account for her tuition and expenses. Both my mother and I had access, allowing us to deposit funds directly. "This way we can both contribute," I explained. "And you'll always have emergency money if you need it." What I didn't say was that I would be contributing 80% of that money. What I didn't know was that Amanda would consider designer clothes and weekend trips emergencies. Through all of this, Jason was my rock. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, and he asked for my number after we spent hours talking about everything from childhood memories to dream vacations. On our third date, he noticed how I checked my phone, constantly worried about my mother and sister. "They're lucky to have you," he said. "But don't forget to live your own life, too." When he proposed after 2 years together, I cried from happiness. Finally, something that was just for me. Or so I thought. Back at our wedding reception, my mother was frantically making excuses to our guests. "Amanda's just overtired," she said to my new mother-in-law. "She didn't sleep well last night. She doesn't handle stress well." The same excuses I'd heard for years. The same protection of Amanda at all costs. As I stood there with champagne drying on my wedding dress, I wondered how much longer I could keep up this charade of family harmony. "Stand still," Taylor whispered, dabbing at my dress with a wet napkin. My best friend since third grade, she was the only one who truly understood my complicated relationship with Amanda. The good news is, it's mostly on the bottom half. No one will notice once it dries. But everyone had already noticed. Not just the champagne, but the words that accompanied it. Jason appeared at my side, his jaw tight with anger. "Where is she?" he asked. "Jason, please don't make it worse," I begged. "Make it worse, Lily. She just threw a drink at you and called you a fraud. At our wedding. I want to know why." He stormed off before I could stop him. Through the crowd, I saw him confront Amanda near the bar. Even from a distance, I could read the fury in his posture. Amanda's face twisted with bitterness as she responded. Though I couldn't hear her, I saw her mouth form the words, "Ask your perfect bride about her perfect lies." My mother inserted herself between them, her hands fluttering anxiously as she always did when trying to diffuse Amanda's outbursts. I watched this familiar scene play out on what should have been the happiest day of my life, and something hardened inside me. Taylor squeezed my hand. "Don't let her ruin this day. It's still your wedding. It's still beautiful." She was right. With her help, I plastered on a smile and rejoined the reception. We cut the cake. We had our first dance. Guests who'd witnessed the champagne incident pretended it hadn't happened, making awkward small talk about the weather and the delicious food. As the band played a slow song, my phone buzzed with a text. "Amanda, the truth was always going to come out." I slipped my phone back into the hidden pocket of my dress and tried to focus on Jason's warm hand in mine as we swayed to the music. But my mind kept spinning, wondering what truth Amanda thought she was exposing. Was it about the money I'd spent years setting aside for her education? Was it about the time I'd covered for her cheating? What truth justified humiliating me on my wedding day? The father-daughter dance was painful in its own way. With my father gone, my Uncle David had stepped in. As we moved across the dance floor, he leaned close to my ear. "I don't know what's going on with Amanda," he said quietly, "but I heard her telling Cousin Patty that you stole money from the family. Something about your father's life insurance." My stomach dropped. "That's absolutely not true," I whispered back. "I figured," Uncle David said. "But she's been saying things like that to different relatives for weeks now. Just thought you should know." The song ended and I thanked him with a kiss on the cheek, my mind reeling. Weeks. She'd been spreading lies about me for weeks before my wedding. And what lies exactly? The life insurance money had gone straight to the hospital to cover Dad's final medical bills. There had been barely enough left to cover the funeral. As we prepared to leave the reception, my mother pulled me aside. "Just give Amanda some time to cool down," she said. "She's jealous, that's all. You know how emotional she gets. Mom, she accused me of being a fraud in front of everyone we know. She didn't mean it." "Then why did she say it?" My mother looked away. "She's been under a lot of pressure at school. Her finals were really stressful. The same excuses. The same protection." I kissed my mother's cheek and walked away, taking Jason's hand as we ran through a tunnel of sparklers held by our cheering guests. In the car, once we were alone, I finally let the tears fall. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. Jason wiped my tears with his thumb. "You have nothing to apologize for. It's my family that ruined our wedding." "Nothing's ruined. I just married the most amazing woman in the world. Everything else is just noise." I leaned my head against his shoulder as we drove toward the hotel, grateful for his unwavering support but deeply shaken by Amanda's words and my uncle's revelation. What other lies had my sister been spreading about me? And why now, after everything I'd done for her? "We don't have to cancel the honeymoon." I insisted the next morning, though part of me was relieved when Jason suggested postponing our trip to Hawaii. After the wedding disaster, the thought of sipping Mai Tais on a beach felt wrong, disconnected from the chaos of my real life. Jason sat beside me on our bed, still in his pajamas, his hair adorably mussed from sleep. "I think we need to figure out what's going on with your family first." "I'm worried about you, Lily." I rested my head on his shoulder, the events of the previous day playing on repeat in my mind. "I don't understand what Amanda thinks I did." "Maybe it's time to tell me everything about your financial situation with them," Jason said gently. "I know you've been supporting them, but I don't know the details." He was right. Throughout our relationship, I'd been vague about exactly how much money I sent to my mother and sister. It wasn't that I was hiding it deliberately. I just felt embarrassed by the dysfunctional dynamic. I've been putting money into Amanda's college fund since I got my first real job I began. At first it was just $200 a month, but when I got promoted, I increased it to $500. Jason's eyes widened. $500 a month. For how long? 4 years, I admitted, plus extra when she needed it for books or lab fees. And I've been helping Mom with her mortgage since I was 23. That's another $1,000 a month. Lily, Jason said slowly, that's over $87,000. Hearing the total made me flinch. They're my family. Mom struggled after Dad died, and Amanda was just a kid. What was I supposed to do? But Amanda isn't a kid anymore, Jason pointed out. She's 21, and from what I can tell, she's not exactly grateful for your help. That was an understatement. I opened my laptop and logged into the joint bank account I shared with my mother and Amanda. The balance was lower than it should have been, given what we'd deposited for the upcoming semester. That's odd, I murmured, scrolling through recent transactions. What I found made my blood run cold. Withdrawals of $200 here, $300 there, charges at clothing stores, restaurants, and bars. Even a weekend trip to Atlantic City 3 weeks before our wedding. She's been using the college fund for personal expenses, I said, my voice hollow. Jason looked over my shoulder at the screen. A lot of personal expenses. Look at this. $700 at Nordstrom last month. I kept scrolling, finding more and more frivolous expenditures. Meanwhile, Amanda's tuition payment was coming due in 2 weeks, and the account was now $4,000 short. $4,000 I had worked overtime to provide. "I need to talk to my mom about this," I said. But when I called her, she was evasive. Amanda explained all that to me. Those were necessary school expenses. Networking events, study materials, professional clothes for her internship interviews. "Mom, there's a charge here for Skyline Rooftop Bar for $350. How is that a school expense?" That was a study group meeting. They needed somewhere quiet to work. The excuses were getting more absurd. I ended the call and sat in stunned silence for several minutes. "I think Amanda's been playing you both," Jason said gently. He was right. I spent the next few hours digging deeper, checking social media accounts and speaking with my cousin who attended the same university. What I discovered was heartbreaking. Amanda had posted Instagram stories from the Atlantic City trip clearly on a girls' weekend with no studying in sight. She had complained to our extended family that I was controlling her by making her account for every penny of her money. And according to my cousin Amanda, rarely attended classes despite telling our mother and me that she was on track to make the dean's list. But the worst discovery came when I found Amanda's Finsta, a secondary Instagram account she kept private from family. There she had posted party photos during times she'd claimed to be studying. In one particularly painful post from 3 months ago, she posed with friends holding cocktails with the caption, "While Big Sis works her life away, I'll be living mine to the fullest number. Sorry, not sorry." The betrayal cut deep. Not just the misused money, but the mockery of my hard work and sacrifices. "I've been such a fool," I whispered. "No," Jason said firmly. "You've been kind and generous. She's the one who's been dishonest." We talked for hours about what to do next. I couldn't keep enabling Amanda's behavior, but I also couldn't bear the thought of her education being derailed because of her poor choices. "I think you need to freeze the account," Jason finally suggested. "Not forever, but until you can have a real conversation with both of them about expectations going forward." The decision was painful but necessary. Late that night, after hours of deliberation, I called the bank and froze the shared account. Amanda would still have access to her personal account, but the education fund, the one I had sacrificed so much to build, was temporarily inaccessible. "She's going to be furious," I said, as I hung up the phone. Probably, Jason agreed. But sometimes people need a wake-up call. I went to bed with a heavy heart, but also a strange sense of relief. For the first time in years, I had put my own well-being first. It felt both wrong and right, like ripping off a bandage to finally let a wound breathe. The next morning, I woke to my phone vibrating violently on the nightstand. 17 missed calls, 10 from Amanda, 7 from my mother, 23 text messages, each more frantic than the last. I had expected anger, but not this level of panic. At precisely 9:30, as Jason and I were having coffee and trying to decide our next steps, Amanda called again. This time I answered, putting the phone on speaker so Jason could hear. "What the hell did you do?" Amanda screamed, her voice so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "The university just called. They've withdrawn my enrollment because the tuition payment failed." "Failed, Lily? What did you do to the account?" "I froze it," I said calmly, "after discovering you've been using education money for bars and shopping sprees." "That's my money!" she shrieked. "You had no right. Actually, it's mostly my money. Money I earned working 60-hour weeks while you were partying. If you don't unfreeze it right now," Amanda hissed, "I swear I'll tell everyone what really happened with Dad's money." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about. How convenient that you were the one handling all the paperwork after he died. How convenient that there was supposedly nothing left." The accusation was so outrageous, I couldn't speak for several seconds. "Amanda, the life insurance barely covered Dad's hospital bills. The statements went directly to Mom. There was nothing left to steal." "That's your story," she said. "But I've got proof that says otherwise." Before I could respond, she hung up. Seconds later, my mother called. "Lily, how could you do this to your sister?" Her voice trembled with anger and disappointment. "She's hysterical. The university says she has 48 hours to make the payment or lose her spot completely." "Mom, did you know she's been using the education fund for clothes and parties?" "She's a young woman who deserves to enjoy her college experience," my mother said defensively. "Not everyone wants to work themselves to death like you do." The casual dismissal of my sacrifices stung more than Amanda's accusations. "I've put over $45,000 into that account over the past 4 years. Money I earned. Money that was supposed to be for her education. And now you're using it to control her," my mother shot back. "Just because you paid for it doesn't mean you get to dictate her life." "I'm not trying to dictate her life. I'm trying to make sure she actually gets an education." "When was the last time you checked her grades, Mom?" "Because according to Cousin Beth, Amanda barely attends classes." "Beth doesn't know what she's talking about," my mother snapped, though I detected uncertainty in her voice. I softened my tone. "Mom, I had plans to use some of my savings for a down payment on a house with Jason. Instead, I've been pouring it into Amanda's education fund. Education she doesn't seem to value." "You've always been the responsible one," my mother said, as if that explained everything. "Amanda's different. She needs more support." "Different how? Less responsible? Less honest?" "That's not fair. You had opportunities she didn't have." I gripped the phone tighter. "What opportunities, Mom? To work 3 jobs, to skip spring break trips so I could pay rent, to turn down my dream school because it cost too much." "Your father was there for most of your childhood," she said quietly. "Amanda lost him at a critical age." "I lost him too." The words burst out of me. "I lost him, and then I lost my entire adolescence taking care of everyone else. When do I get to come first?" "You're being selfish," my mother said. "If Amanda loses her spot at the university, her entire future is ruined. Is that what you want?" The conversation went in circles after that. My mother alternating between guilt-tripping and begging, me trying to make her understand the magnitude of Amanda's deception. We ended the call with nothing resolved, both of us emotional and frustrated. Jason, who had heard everything, wrapped me in a tight hug. "You're not being selfish," he whispered into my hair. "You've been taken advantage of for years." 2 hours later, our doorbell rang insistently. Amanda stood on our doorstep, eyes red and puffy, but her expression was pure rage. "Fix this," she demanded, as she pushed past me into the apartment. "Fix it now." Jason stepped forward. "Amanda, you need to calm down." "Stay out of this," she snapped. "This is family business." "I'm family now, too," he said calmly. "And I won't let you speak to my wife that way in our home." Amanda laughed bitterly. Your wife. The perfect Lily. Do you even know who you married? Did she tell you how she stole $40,000 of Dad's life insurance money? That's a lie, I said, my voice shaking. The insurance money went to the hospital, every penny of it. Then where did you get the money for your fancy degree? For your apartment in the nice part of town? For your perfect life, while Mom and I struggled? I worked for it, I said. Every single penny. Amanda rolled her eyes dramatically. Right. The Lily Martyr story. So tired of hearing it. Our neighbors across the hall opened their door, curious about the commotion. Amanda noticed and raised her voice even higher. Everyone thinks you're so perfect. Hardworking Lily, responsible Lily. But I know the truth. You've been stealing from this family for years. That's when she dropped the bombshell that left me speechless. I've told Uncle David, Aunt Patty, Grandma, everyone. I showed them the insurance policy. $40,000 that disappeared on your watch. Money that should have supported Mom and me. The realization hit me like a physical blow. For years, Amanda had been telling our extended family that I had stolen our father's life insurance money. No wonder certain relatives had been cold to me. No wonder there had been whispers and strange looks at family gatherings. The policy was for $20,000. I said, my voice barely audible. And it went directly to the hospital. You know that, Amanda. You were there when Mom signed the checks. I was 13, I didn't know what I was seeing. I just know we were suddenly poor, and you somehow managed to go to college while Mom could barely pay the electric bill. I got scholarships. I worked 3 jobs. So you say. Jason stepped between us. Amanda, I think you should leave now. When you're calmer, we can all sit down and go through the financial records together. There must be bank statements, insurance documents that can clear this up. Amanda's face hardened. Always protecting her. Just like everyone does. She turned to me. Unfreeze the account or I swear I'll make sure every person we know hears about what you did. I can't unfreeze it, I said, truthfully. The bank put a 24-hour hold on it after I reported possible fraudulent activity. This was technically true. The customer service representative had mentioned a hold period when I called to freeze the account. Amanda's face went white with fury. You reported me for fraud. Your own sister. I reported unauthorized use of education funds for personal expenses, I clarified. Which is exactly what you've been doing. I hate you, she whispered. I've always hated you. Perfect Lily with her perfect life. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the framed photos on our wall rattled. In the sudden silence, I sank onto the couch, the full weight of the situation crashing down on me. My entire family thinks I'm a thief, I said numbly. For years, they've believed I stole from my dead father. Jason sat beside me, taking my hands in his. We'll fix this. We'll find the documents clear your name. But we both knew the damage was done. Even with proof, the doubt had been planted. The relationships had been poisoned. And the worst part, my own mother, had apparently done nothing to correct these lies. I had spent my entire adult life supporting my family, sacrificing my own dreams and goals to make sure they were taken care of. And this was how they repaid me, with accusations, lies, and betrayal. That night, as Jason and I lay in bed, I finally acknowledged what I had been denying for years. My relationship with my sister and mother wasn't just complicated, it was toxic. And if I wanted any chance at happiness in my new marriage, something would have to change. 1 week after our wedding, an envelope arrived from the university. Inside was a letter addressed to both my mother and me as co-signers on Amanda's educational expenses. It detailed Amanda's academic standing. She was on probation and had been for the past semester. Her GPA had fallen to 1.9 below the 2.0 required to maintain good standing. She had failed 2 classes and received Ds in 3 others. I called my mother immediately. Did you see the letter from the university? What letter, she asked, her voice wary. They sent it to both of us. It's about Amanda's grades. Silence on the other end. Then I haven't checked the mail today. Mom, Amanda's on academic probation. She's failing most of her classes. Has been for months. More silence. I could almost hear her processing this information, trying to find a way to explain it that didn't involve Amanda being responsible. The professors must be unfair, she finally said. You know Amanda's smart. She just doesn't test well. Mom, please. This isn't about testing. According to this letter, she's barely attending classes. Some professors haven't seen her in weeks. That can't be right, my mother insisted. She leaves for class every morning at 8. I see her go. The pieces clicked together. And where does she go when she leaves the house? To class, obviously. But we both knew that wasn't true. Not anymore. I drove to my mother's house that afternoon with the university letter and printouts of Amanda's social media posts, the ones showing her at brunches and shopping malls during times she claimed to be in class. I also brought my laptop to show the bank statements detailing how the education fund had been systematically drained for non-educational expenses. My mother's face grew increasingly pale as I laid out the evidence. When I finished, she sat in stunned silence, staring at the papers spread across her kitchen table. There must be some explanation, she finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. The explanation is that Amanda has been lying to us, I said gently, and we've been enabling her by not checking up on her by always believing her excuses. My mother shook her head slowly. Why would she do this? Risk her future this way? I think we need to ask her that, I said. Together. We called Amanda and asked her to come home. She arrived an hour later, clearly expecting another confrontation about the frozen bank account. When she saw the university letter and social media printouts on the table, her expression shifted from defiance to something like fear. What's this? She asked. Though it was obvious, she knew. The truth, I said simply. About your grades. About where you've been spending your time. About what you've been doing with the education fund. Amanda's eyes darted between our mother and me. Finding no ally in either of us, she went on the offensive. You went through my private social media. How dare you invade my privacy? Your Finsta isn't exactly private when you have 300 followers, I pointed out, including Cousin Beth. This is exactly why I never wanted to go to that stupid university Amanda spat. It was always your dream, not mine. But everyone just assumed I'd follow in Perfect Lily's footsteps. If you didn't want to go, why didn't you just say so? Our mother asked, bewildered. Because you wouldn't have listened. It was always, Amanda, you need to be more like your sister. Amanda, why can't you get scholarships like Lily? Amanda, why can't you be responsible like Lily? The bitterness in her voice was palpable. Had this resentment been building for years? Had I somehow contributed to it by trying to help? I never meant to pressure you, I said softly. I just wanted you to have opportunities. The kind Dad would have wanted for you. Don't bring Dad into this, Amanda said sharply. You don't get to use him to make me feel guilty. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm trying to understand what happened. Why you've been spreading lies about me stealing Dad's insurance money. Amanda flushed. That wasn't a lie. I really believed it. Mom was always saying how there should have been money left over, but somehow there wasn't. We both looked at our mother, who had the grace to look ashamed. I was grieving, she said quietly. Angry at the world. I said things I shouldn't have. But Lily, I never explicitly said you took the money. But you let Amanda believe it, I said, the hurt evident in my voice. You let her tell our entire family these lies about me and you never corrected her. I didn't know she was doing that, my mother protested. How could you not know, Uncle David told me. Amanda's been telling people for weeks. Years, maybe. My mother looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Her silence was confirmation enough. I have the receipts, I said, pulling another folder from my bag. Every payment to the hospital, the funeral home, Dad's final expenses. There was nothing left to steal. The policy was barely enough to cover his care. I spread the documents on the table, faded receipts and bank statements I'd kept all these years, knowing someday they might be needed. My mother picked them up with trembling hands, reading through them slowly. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought. I assumed. You assumed the worst of me, I finished for her. Your daughter, who's been helping support this family since she was 17. Amanda, seeing her narrative crumbling, changed tactics. Fine. Maybe you didn't steal Dad's insurance. But you've been controlling and manipulative about the education money. Acting like I should be grateful for your handouts. They weren't handouts, I said, struggling to keep my voice level. They were investments in your future. Investments you've been squandering on parties and shopping sprees. It's my life, Amanda insisted. I get to decide how to live it. Absolutely, I agreed. But not with my money. That's when Amanda dropped another bombshell. I've been recording our conversations, she said smugly. I have you on tape saying all sorts of things that make you look bad. Things I can edit and share. My stomach clenched. Are you blackmailing me? I'm protecting myself, she countered. I knew eventually you'd try to control me with money, so I made sure I had leverage. Our mother gasped. Amanda, you can't be serious. Ask her to show you the recordings, I suggested calmly, though inside I was seething. Ask her what exactly she thinks she has that makes me look bad. Amanda pulled out her phone. Like when you said you regretted helping me, or when you called me lazy and entitled. I never said those things, I protested. Let's listen then, my mother said firmly. Amanda's confidence faltered. I'd need to find them. They're on my old phone. No, they're not, I said, the truth suddenly clear. Because they don't exist. You never recorded me saying those things because I never said them. Amanda's face reddened. I recorded other things. Things that would embarrass you if the family heard them. Like what I challenged. Like that time you said Mom was enabling me. Or when you complained about having to help with the mortgage. Our mother frowned. You complained about helping with the mortgage? No, I didn't, I said. Then turned back to Amanda. Is that the best you've got? That I supposedly complained about financial pressure, even if that were true, which it isn't. Do you really think the family would side with you after they learn how you've been spending education? Money on parties, while failing classes. Amanda's facade began to crack. In her desperation to defend herself, she made a critical error. At least I'm not hiding a secret bank account from my husband, like you did from Jason. The room went silent. Our mother looked at me in confusion. What secret account? I don't have a secret account, I said, watching Amanda carefully. I've been completely transparent with Jason about all my finances. Amanda realized her mistake too late, I thought. Someone told me. Who told you, I asked. Or did you just make it up like you made up the story about me stealing Dad's insurance money? My mother's expression changed as the truth finally dawned on her. She turned to Amanda with new eyes. You've been lying, she said softly. About all of it. Amanda's defiance crumbled. Tears filled her eyes. You never see me, she whispered. Either of you. It's always about Lily. Lily, the perfect daughter. Lily, the savior of the family. I'm just nobody. The raw pain in her voice pierced through my anger. This wasn't just about money or lies. This was about a lifetime of feeling invisible, of living in my shadow. Had I contributed to that, without realizing it? Before we could explore this revelation further, Amanda stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Through the window, I watched her drive away, tires screeching on the pavement. What have I done? My mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. I thought I was protecting her, but I've been enabling this behavior for years. I reached across the table and took her hand. We both have. But it stops now. For her sake as much as ours. My mother nodded slowly. What do we do next? That was the question I'd been asking myself all week. What do you do when the family you've sacrificed everything for betrays you so completely? How do you move forward without losing yourself in bitterness and resentment? First, I said we stop lying to ourselves about who Amanda is and what she's done. Then we set clear boundaries, and we stick to them no matter how hard it gets. My mother squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry, Lily, for everything. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. The next morning, I sat down with Jason to develop a strategic response to the situation. After years of reacting emotionally to my family's dramas, it was time for a clear-headed approach. We need to protect ourselves legally and financially, Jason advised. This isn't just about hurt feelings anymore. Amanda's accusations could damage your reputation, and her financial manipulations could affect our future. He was right. I called a financial advisor who specialized in family disputes and scheduled a consultation for the following day. Then I contacted an attorney to understand my options if Amanda continued spreading false information about me. I feel like I'm betraying my family, I admitted to Jason. You're not betraying anyone, he said firmly. You're protecting yourself after they betrayed you. There's a big difference. With his help, I began gathering every financial record I could find. Bank statements showing my deposits into the education fund. Pay stubs documenting my income over the years. receipts for the hospital bills and funeral expenses after my father died. I even found my father's original life insurance policy in a box of important papers I'd kept since his death, confirming the payout amount was $20,000, exactly what had been paid to the hospital. Next, I called the university's financial aid office and explained the situation. They couldn't share specific details about Amanda's academic record due to privacy laws, but they confirmed what the letter had stated: she was on academic probation and at risk of expulsion. There's also a note here about a plagiarism investigation, the administrator said cautiously. I can't give details, but you might want to ask her about that. Plagiarism. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. This went beyond skipping classes or misusing funds. This was academic dishonesty that could result in expulsion and a permanent mark on her record. As I dug deeper, my father's sister, Aunt Carol, reached out to me. I heard about what happened at your wedding, she said when I answered her call, and about the accusations Amanda's been making. I want you to know I never believed them. Tears sprang to my eyes. You didn't. Of course not. I knew my brother's policy barely covered his medical expenses, and I've watched you work yourself to the bone supporting your mother and sister all these years. The idea that you would steal from your family is absurd. Her support meant more than she could know. Have others in the family believed Amanda's stories? Some have questioned, Aunt Carol admitted. But I think deep down most know the truth. They've seen your character. Amanda's stories never quite added up. With Aunt Carol's encouragement, I drafted a letter to our extended family. It was factual rather than accusatory, simply outlining the truth about my father's insurance policy with documentation attached. I explained how I had supported my mother and sister financially for years, and how that support had unfortunately been misused. I didn't ask for sympathy or forgiveness for freezing the account, just understanding of the full picture. Are you sure you want to send this? Jason asked as he read over the letter. It feels very exposing. I'm tired of secrets, I said. They've only protected Amanda's behavior and damaged my relationships with family members who believed her lies. Before sending the letter, I had a flash of insight. If Amanda had been so reckless with the education fund, what else might she have done? I should check my credit report, I told Jason. His eyes widened. You don't think she would? I don't know what she's capable of anymore. The credit report revealed my worst fears. 2 credit cards had been opened in my name in the past year. One had a balance of $8,000. The other was maxed out at $12,000. Purchases included flights, concert tickets, and high-end clothing stores, none of which I had bought. Identity theft, Jason said grimly as we stared at the report. Your own sister. I felt physically ill. This went beyond family drama into criminal territory. Amanda had stolen my identity and racked up $20,000 in fraudulent debt in my name. What do? I whispered. You have to report it, Jason said gently. If you don't, you'll be responsible for that debt. And she'll keep doing it. But she could face criminal charges. She's my sister. A sister who has stolen from you, lied about you, and now committed fraud using your name. He was right, but the decision was agonizing. After hours of discussion and many tears, I filed a police report for identity theft and contacted the credit card companies to dispute the fraudulent accounts. I didn't name Amanda as the perpetrator in the police report. I couldn't bring myself to go that far. But I did what was necessary to protect my credit and financial future. The next day, I met with my mother at a coffee shop near her house. It was time for the most difficult conversation of all. I filed a police report for identity theft, I told her directly. Someone opened credit cards in my name and charged $20,000. My mother's face paled. You don't think. I know it was Amanda, I said firmly. The purchases match her social media posts. Designer clothes she could never afford on her own. Trips to concerts and hotels when she was supposedly at school. What will happen to her? My mother asked, her voice trembling. Nothing if she agrees to my terms. I didn't name her in the report, but this has to stop, Mom. All of it. The lies, the manipulation, the entitlement. I can't keep enabling her, and neither can you. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. I've failed as a mother, haven't I? To both of you. I reached across the table and took her hand. You did the best you could after Dad died. But yes, we've all been caught in an unhealthy pattern. Amanda needs real consequences and professional help, not more protection. What do we do now? First, Amanda pays back the fraudulent credit card debt even if it takes years. Second, if she wants to continue at the university, she gets a part-time job to contribute to her own education. Third, she admits to the family that she lied about me stealing Dad's insurance money. And if she refuses, then I'll name her in the identity theft investigation, and I'll cut off all financial support permanently. My mother flinched at the hardness in my voice. That seems harsh. It's necessary, I insisted. I love Amanda, but I love myself too. And I have a husband now, a new life I'm trying to build. I can't keep pouring resources into someone who throws it back in my face. For the first time, my mother didn't immediately defend Amanda or make excuses. She nodded slowly, a new resolve forming in her eyes. You're right. It stops now. That evening, we had a final confrontation at my mother's house. Amanda arrived defiant, but her attitude changed when I laid out the evidence of the identity theft and explained the potential consequences. You wouldn't turn me in, she said, but her voice wavered with uncertainty. I already filed the police report, I replied calmly. I just didn't name you, yet. But the credit card companies are investigating, and they will find out it was you eventually. So what do you want, money? I don't have $20,000. I want you to take responsibility for once in your life, I said. I want you to acknowledge what you've done, to me, to Mom, to yourself, and I want you to make it right. I laid out my terms repayment of the debt, getting a job, admitting her lies to the family. Amanda listened, her expression shifting from defiance to shock to something like shame. And if I don't agree, she challenged, though, with less conviction than before. Then you're on your own, I said simply. Completely. No more financial support, no more covering for you, no more protection from consequences. My mother, to her credit, stood firm beside me. We're doing this because we love you, Amanda. But this behavior can't continue. Amanda looked back and forth between us, perhaps for the first time, seeing the united front she couldn't manipulate. The reality of her situation seemed to finally sink in. I need time to think, she said finally. You have until tomorrow, I replied. After that, I call the detective handling the identity theft case and give them your name. As she left, I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and relief. The confrontation had been painful but necessary. For too long, I had enabled Amanda's behavior out of a misguided sense of family duty. Now, I was finally setting boundaries that should have been established years ago. Do you think she'll agree? My mother asked, after Amanda left. I don't know, I admitted. But for the first time, the choice is truly hers. We've done all we can do. That night, as Jason and I drove home, I felt lighter despite the uncertainty ahead. The road to healing my family might be long and difficult, but I had finally taken the first step, not just for them, but for myself. 3 months passed before any semblance of normalcy returned to our family. In that time, many things changed, some painfully, some hopefully. Amanda initially rejected my terms, convinced I was bluffing about pressing charges for the identity theft. It took a formal letter from my attorney and a meeting with the credit card fraud investigator to make her understand the gravity of her situation. Faced with potential criminal charges, she finally agreed to take responsibility. The repayment plan we established was strict but fair. Amanda got a part-time job at a coffee shop near campus, working 20 hours a week. Half her earnings went toward paying off the fraudulent credit card debt. It would take years to repay the full amount, but the regular payments kept the credit card companies from pursuing legal action. More significant than the financial arrangement was Amanda's agreement to enter therapy. At first, she went reluctantly, only to satisfy our conditions. But gradually, something began to change. After several sessions, she requested a family meeting with her therapist present. I've been living with this resentment toward you for so long, she admitted, looking directly at me. Ever since Dad died, I felt like I was living in your shadow. The responsible daughter, the successful one. Mom was so focused on you being the provider that I felt invisible unless I was causing problems. Her therapist nodded encouragingly. So I started acting out, Amanda continued. At first it was just for attention. Then it became, I don't know my identity. The rebellious sister, the fun one, the one who wasn't tied down by responsibility. I never wanted you to feel that way, I said softly. I just wanted to help. I know that now, Amanda acknowledged. But back then it felt like you were showing off, making me look bad in comparison. Every sacrifice you made felt like another way of saying I wasn't good enough. Our mother wiped away tears. I never meant to compare you two. I was just so grateful for Lily's help after your father died. You didn't have to compare us directly, Amanda said. It was always there, unspoken. Why can't you be more like your sister? The therapist intervened gently. This pattern is actually very common in families, especially after trauma like losing a parent. One child becomes the responsible one, often prematurely, while another might rebel or act out as a way of establishing a separate identity. We talked for 2 hours that day, painful truths emerging that had been buried for years. Amanda admitted to her lies about the insurance money, acknowledging that she had twisted our mother's grief-stricken comments into a narrative that absolved her of responsibility. She confessed to the identity theft, explaining that it had started as just one purchase before spiraling out of control. My mother, for her part, recognized how her enabling had contributed to Amanda's behavior. I thought I was protecting you, she told Amanda. But I was really protecting myself from having to confront another painful situation after losing your father. As for me, I acknowledged that my caretaking had sometimes crossed into controlling. I wanted to make everything better, I admitted. Fix everything for everyone. But I didn't always listen to what you actually needed or wanted. The university had placed Amanda on strict academic probation, requiring her to maintain a GPA of at least 2.5 to continue enrollment. With her permission, I met with her academic advisor to establish a support plan. Amanda would attend weekly tutoring sessions and check in regularly with her professors. She's actually quite bright, her advisor told me, but she's been coasting on charm and excuses rather than doing the work. That sounded about right. The shared bank account remained closed. Instead, Amanda opened her own student account, and my mother deposited a modest monthly allowance, enough for basic necessities but not extravagances. I contributed to her tuition directly to the university, a smaller amount than before, complemented by student loans that Amanda would be responsible for repaying. It's actually better this way, Amanda admitted during one of our now regular coffee meetups. Knowing I'm partially responsible for my education makes me take it more seriously. The road wasn't always smooth. Amanda had setbacks, a missed payment here, a skipped class there. But unlike before, these incidents had consequences that weren't immediately swept away by excuses or bailouts. My relationship with my mother healed more slowly. The revelation that she had allowed Amanda's lies about me to persist had cut deep. But she was making genuine efforts to change, attending family therapy sessions and standing firm when Amanda tested boundaries. I was so afraid of losing you both. After your father died, she confessed during one particularly emotional session. I thought if I demanded too much of Amanda, she would pull away completely. And I took you for granted, Lily, because you were always so strong. Jason and I finally took our delayed honeymoon to Hawaii 3 months after our wedding. The turquoise waters and gentle breezes of Maui were exactly what we needed after the family upheaval. On our 3rd day there, as we watched the sunset from our oceanfront balcony, Jason asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you regret how things turned out with your family? I considered the question carefully. I regret that it took such a dramatic confrontation to change things. I regret not setting boundaries sooner. But no, I don't regret standing up for myself finally. He squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, you know. Those words meant everything. Upon our return, I found several messages from extended family members who had received my letter explaining the truth about my father's insurance and Amanda's false accusations. Most expressed support and apologies for having believed the worst about me. Uncle David invited us for dinner specifically to apologize for his part in spreading the rumors. I should have come to you directly, he said, clearly ashamed. Instead, I gossiped. That wasn't fair to you. His apology helped heal a wound I hadn't realized was still so raw. Even Amanda was making amends in her own way. She had written a message to the family group chat acknowledging her lies and apologizing for the damage she'd caused. It wasn't perfect. She still included some excuses about feeling overlooked, but it was progress. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Amanda invited Jason and me to her small campus apartment for dinner. I was apprehensive, but Jason encouraged me to go. It's a peace offering, he said. At least hear her out. The apartment was modest, but clean, a far cry from the luxury lifestyle Amanda had tried to maintain on borrowed money. She had prepared a simple pasta dinner, nothing fancy but made with obvious care. "I wanted to show you I'm doing okay on my own," she said, a touch of pride in her voice. "Not just surviving, but actually managing my life like an adult." Over dinner, she shared her midterm grades, 3 Bs and an A-. "My professor said my English paper was one of the best in class," she added, trying to sound casual but clearly pleased. "That's fantastic, Amanda," I said, genuinely happy for her. "I'm also up for a promotion at the coffee shop," she continued. "Assistant manager. It would mean more hours, but better pay." "How would that affect your studies?" Jason asked. "I've worked out a schedule," Amanda explained, showing us a detailed calendar on her phone. "My manager is willing to work around my class times." The level of planning and responsibility was so unlike the old Amanda that I found myself momentarily speechless. Jason filled the silence, asking questions about her courses and work responsibilities. As they chatted, I looked around the apartment, noting the absence of designer labels and luxury items that had once seemed so important to my sister. "You've really changed," I said when there was a pause in the conversation. Amanda met my eyes directly. "I'm trying to. It's not easy. Sometimes I still feel resentful or entitled. But then I remind myself where that thinking led me. Nearly expelled, almost facing criminal charges, alienated from my family." "I'm proud of you," I said, the words catching in my throat. Amanda's eyes glistened. "That actually means a lot coming from you." Later, as we prepared to leave, Amanda handed me an envelope. "I wanted to give you this." Inside was a check for $300. Not a huge amount, but significant given her limited income. "It's my third payment toward what I owe you," she explained. "I know it's not much compared to the total, but I'm committed to paying it all back eventually." I hugged her then, perhaps the first genuine embrace we had shared in years. "It's not just about the money," I whispered. "It's about the responsibility. You're doing great." As Jason and I drove home that night, I reflected on the tumultuous journey our family had taken. The wedding disaster that had seemed like an ending had actually been a beginning, painful but necessary. By freezing that bank account and finally standing up for myself, I had set in motion changes that might ultimately save my sister and heal our family. "Penny, for your thoughts," Jason asked as we neared our apartment. "I was just thinking about boundaries," I said. "All those years I thought love meant giving everything, sacrificing everything, but sometimes real love means saying no, setting limits, allowing people to face the consequences of their actions." "That's a hard lesson to learn," Jason observed. "The hardest," I agreed, "but also the most important." The following weekend, my mother hosted a small family dinner, just the 4 of us. As we sat around her dining table, I was struck by how different the dynamic felt. There was an honesty between us that hadn't existed before. The conversation wasn't always easy, but it was real. At one point, my mother reached over and squeezed my hand. "I know I haven't said this enough, but thank you, Lily. Not just for the financial support all these years, but for having the courage to break our unhealthy patterns. We're still a work in progress," I reminded her. "Aren't all families?" Jason added with a smile. Amanda raised her water glass. "To new beginnings and painful truths." We all clinked glasses, and I felt something I hadn't experienced with my family in a very long time: peace. Not perfect harmony, not the end of all struggles, but a quiet understanding that we were finally on a healthier path. Later that night, lying beside Jason in the darkness of our bedroom, I whispered, "I think we're going to be okay." "Your family." "Yes, and us. Our future." He pulled me closer. "I know we are." For the first time since my father's death, I truly believed it too. The road ahead would have its challenges. Amanda's continued recovery, rebuilding trust, with my mother establishing healthy boundaries that allowed me to support without enabling. But I had finally learned the most valuable lesson: true love sometimes means letting people fall so they can learn to stand on their own. And in that knowledge was freedom. For Amanda, for my mother, but most importantly for me. What would you do if you were in my position? Would you have frozen the bank account sooner, or would you have continued supporting your sister despite her behavior? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? Please, share your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if you found it meaningful. Subscribe for more stories about family dynamics and personal growth. And share with anyone who might be struggling with similar situations. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you navigate your own family challenges with courage and wisdom.